What has Excelsior's domain been picking up from eBay? Let's have a look.
Right, apologies, this is going to be a little bit rapid because I've got to be on the Cosmic Council in about 40 minutes or so. So, in 40 minutes or less, this chap, Brimstone, GoBot, Bandai, mid-80s. He's not the pickup, but he's an intro into the pickup. So, these guys were effectively Transformers, but they weren't Hasbro, they were Bandai, and they transformed into rocks. They were the RockLords. Yeah, so this is him. Inside this great big bag here, it is much larger than I thought it was going to be. Inside this bag on which he is stood is something that I'd never heard of before eBay threw it at me. And when it did, I thought, that makes absolutely no logical sense whatsoever given what I know about RockLords. Because that figure is quite large and chunky. And what I was looking at was a vehicle for RockLords called Stonewing. And it's a vehicle that transforms, wait for it, into a rock. Yeah. Okay, but I haven't looked at this properly yet at all, so this is a genuine sort of unboxing / unbagging situation, so I don't really know what to expect. But it looks big and it feels really heavy because being Bandai, it's probably going to be very metal, and oh my god, it's huge. Yeah, okay. Relatively speaking, that's pretty big. What am I looking at? Well, that is an excellent question. What am I looking at? We're looking at a sort of dragstery sort of thing. It's very sort of golden. I can see that it's got sort of places where things could pop out and so on and transform, but because I'm doing this at a bit of speed, I haven't really done a huge amount of research on it at all. But it does appear to have the wings here. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. It's got great big stonking wings, and clearly this is designed for one of these guys to basically be sort of sat in it in some way, shape, or form. So it's definitely the right sort of scale. You know, they've definitely gone for it scale wise. And I'm just sort of, you know, it's a completely wacky concept. Apparently, what Bandai realised was that the Transformers were selling really well because, you know, they were vehicles. Basically, they transformed into other stuff that you can then, you know, roll around and fly around and so on. And they thought, well, okay, we need to do something with RockLords to give them transport. And this apparently was their idea. They gave them this vehicle. Now, I'm not sure they did much more than just this one. I think there might have been one other. But I wasn't into this range, so I can't really tell you much more than that at this point, I'm afraid. But do let me know in the comments if you're more, you know, infinitely more familiar, which I'm sure you will be. Apologies for the Heath Robinson setup, by the way. This is a bit of an interim measure, because last night I was trying to put a Christmas tree up, so the area where I normally film is slightly in disarray as a result. So yeah, so the idea was that this would act as a sort of winged chariot for guys like Brimstone. This nose looks like it should do something, so I'm not sure what. It's got a little teeny tiny gun there. These, I guess, are probably sort of rocket jets. I don't know if anything happens with the wheels to make them disappear, but this is supposed to transform in some way, shape or form. It's quite sort of chromy. As I say, it's got a really good weight to it. There's definitely some solid, probably some solid metal actually on the wheels there. Very, very chunky. So this is labelled Bandai 1985, which you probably just saw. So it's got more wheels underneath the wing. That is such a classic Japanese thing to do. It's like, you know, it's got to be vaguely accurate to real life, so they've decided to give it landing gear underneath its wing as well. the whole wheelbase feels like it shifts as well. Whether that's designed to actually, so there's a little bit of movement on the actual wheelbase itself. So I bet, oh yeah, that allows it to spin then. So if you fold that back in there, if I fold the wings back in, you can probably then move this to a different sort of orientation or something. But as I say, unfortunately, I don't actually, whoops, there we go. I don't actually know what I'm doing. So it can end up looking like that. And then presumably there are some sort of other panels that would then also flip out, and it's got another landing gear in the nose there as well. So I'm wondering if the idea was that you could actually completely remove the wheels and just have it in a sort of a completely jet mode, because I can't see you being able to fold it up into a rock mode. It's got an aft laser cannon there as well. That's pretty cool. But as I say, I can't see that you could get it into a jet mode without sacrificing something. Now, perhaps I'm wrong. Maybe it just transforms between a vehicle and a jet. Maybe I'm expecting too much of it. That might actually make more sense. Maybe it just transforms between the wheeled vehicle and the jet. But you know, it's like it's this flying boulder. It's but why would you make it like a boulder if it doesn't transform into a stone? Is what I don't get. That seems somewhat pointless to me, to my mind. But it definitely doesn't feel like that bit transforms in any way, shape or form. So I'm really not quite sure what to make of that conceptually. So yeah, answers on a postcard if you had this, because I am genuinely puzzled now as to what the crack is with it, and it might merit its own video in a bit more detail in due course, just to try and understand how it was actually supposed to go. But it is an intriguing thing. I quite like the sort of the coloration on it and the sort of the multifaceted nature of it, because they've definitely gone to trouble to make it really look bumpy and rocky. So I completely get what they were going for in terms of the look and feel of it, you know. And those come down as well. Okay, there's a lot of, I mean, it's not, you can't really call it articulation, I suppose, but it's you know, there's a lot of little bits and pieces to it. So maybe it's almost ironic. I need to look at somebody else's video and see what this is actually supposed to do. This definitely twists as if it wants to do something, but I don't want to put too much force on it because I don't know how it actually works properly. But yeah, I mean, it's a funky little idea, and I like the idea that they've scaled it with guys like Brimstone, so they can then just sort of sit on it. And obviously, even it would suit pretty much any action figure going, because that's quite a big space. So pretty much anyone could ride up there if you wanted them to. But I'll have to do a little bit more research, I think, and just understand what the sort of transformation sequence really should look like. Because I may be selling it short in terms of what it's actually fully capable of doing. So that's interesting. So this rear gun can actually, okay. So that actually moves inside the back. So the back then becomes a completely solid piece of rock. So where that piece was previously sticking out, that actually slides all the way, and then you can fold it down. That's quite clever. So I wonder how many other features it has like that. So it got sort of surprise weapons and stuff. So that's the classic sort of mid-80s kind of thing. That I'm thinking of my 18 Faces Corvette. Yeah, it's on a spring-loaded action as well. So it pops out. So as soon as you flip that up, the laser guns come out of the back. It's growing on me. It's definitely growing on me. I say I don't have a clue what it's supposed to look like, but it is actually growing on me a little bit. Right, that's pretty cool. I'll show you another pickup. Alright, now you've seen some of these from me before, but this is actually pretty cool. This is pretty cool. Behold, one of the more unusual Babylon 5 Earth Alliance figures from that strange place that I could never quite sort of figure out. So basically it is just sort of Premier Toys, basically. But this is Babylon 5 Earth Alliance Space Station, but this is the Ranger, Marcus Cole. with the White Star. And I rather like the White Star, and this was my main interest, I have to admit, in actually getting this particular figure, because the Micro Machines for Babylon 5 did not feature the White Star at all. So you can't even get a smaller version of this. This is the only official merchandise that includes the White Star, and it's not a perfect rendition of it in terms of the look of it in the show, but I appreciate what they've tried to do there. They've tried to give it a bit of an interesting mottled skin effect, and they've made it quite purpley and pinky, and that is accurate. And the actual model itself is good, and it's a good size, because the advantage of these particular releases is that everything is a decent size. And Marcus Cole has got his little sort of his Ranger brooch there, which is a human and Minbari together. And he's got his cloak, and it's a good figure. I actually really like that figure, and his face sculpt's not bad either. So actually, kudos to them. I'm liking it. Let me just borrow the back of the filming area to try and prop him up. Now, yes, he's got a bit of his face isn't quite sort of spot on, admittedly, but it's not terrible. So the bit on the back there says, the Babylon Project was our last best hope for peace. A self-contained world 5 miles long located in neutral territory. A place of commerce and diplomacy for 250,000 humans and aliens. A shining beacon in space all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the third age of mankind, the year the Great War came upon us all. Opening narration by Captain John Sheridan for Season 3. So the White Star is a revolutionary Minbari warship. White Star incorporates both Minbari and Vorlon technology. The White Star has artificial gravity, and despite its relatively small size, can make its own jump point, which is a very important feature of the White Star class of ship, because you would not generally expect a ship of its size to be able to generate its own jump point into hyperspace. And Marcus Cole's spiel reads as follows. One of the Rangers, Marcus Cole, became involved with the Army of Light after witnessing his Ranger brother die during a shadow attack. Each Ranger has sworn his life to fight the forces of darkness. Marcus arrived on Babylon 5 in 2260 to ask Captain Sheridan to rescue Rangers blockaded by the Centauri. And they were doing that on behalf of the Shadows and Mr. Morden, of course. And it's got the sort of the Ranger figures there. I've shown you several of these before. The Kosh figure I've sent on to its final home, and that was very gratefully received, which was nice. And I don't actually have all of these by any stretch of the imagination. It's not something I really tried to sort of focus on as such, but I have picked up a fair few along the way. It will probably be relatively straightforward to collect the rest, and indeed, as you can see, this one's in nice carded condition. Many of them are. Getting them loose can happen, but many of them are carded. Their articulation is woefully lacking, admittedly. They're very, very solid figures. They are action figures, but they're almost better for display, really, rather than anything else. So I've always liked the backdrops to them. It's just a nice backdrop because it's got a decent picture of the station up the top there, and they as I say, they present very well as display pieces. So it's cool. I like it. I like the figure. I think he looks kind of almost sort of generically sort of adventurer class kind of costume to him, but that is a good likeness of a Ranger from Babylon 5, so I can't knock them for presenting him like that. It's good, and the White Star does, it's not bob on, no, but it's not bad either, and it is as I say, the only example of a White Star from Babylon 5 merchandise of that day that we have, that I'm aware of. So very different pairing of items tonight, but those have been my eBay pickups of late. I do have some others to show you, but there's going to be a particular theme behind that video which I don't have time for tonight, so I've just whetted your appetite with a couple of things here just to fill my Thursday slot, and I will be back with a slightly different sort of emphasis next week, but being Christmas, or Christmas period at least, I've got a few things on at the moment, so I might be a little bit patchier than normal, but what I'll try and do is get stuff lined up. So even if I'm not in the chat with you, obviously, you can still watch the content. So that's it for now. Cheers.